How's it going, everybody? I want to apologize for my voice. As I said, I'm touched with a bit of the consumption, also known as bronchitis, just to have a little flair for dramatic. Um, but I kind of want to wrap this whole thing up with sort of a summation or some reasoning as to why we hunt. I'm gonna say we a lot because I'm part of that community. I have been for over 20 years. Um, it's personal in a lot of ways. But despite that, objectivity won't be any issue because it is all in the greater need for learning. So first off, I want to talk about a guy named Dale Ham and a couple authors. Well, Mr. Ham wrote a book with a gentleman named David Bach in 1996 called The Last of the Market Hunters. And Ham and his family survived off of market hunting. And I've kind of explained that before. Market hunting is sort of like our meat industry now, but with wild game. Guys would go out and slaughter thousands of ducks, geese, deer, whatever, bring them to processors or butcher themselves at home and sell them. It's now illegal. You cannot sell wild game in any way. If you get game at a restaurant, it's all farm raised, and there's plenty of farms, especially in Texas, that raise elk and all that fun stuff. But Mr. Ham, he survived. Him and his family survived off of market hunting for generations. Back in 1902, the duck limit was 50 a day. There was no season. There was no protection. There was no anything. Now in modern times here in Ohio, depending on what duck species, you're allowed usually at most 6 and as little as 2. Mr. Ham became one of the most proficient and prominent market hunters or poachers, however you want to look at it, in the Illinois River Valley. He kept his family alive during the 20s, or 1920s, 30s, and 40s by market hunting. That's what they ate. Great Depression, didn't have any money for food, so he went and got it himself. And after market hunting was outlawed and the Pittman-Robertson Act was put in place, the North American model of wildlife conservation was put into place, and hunting laws became regular. Ham became one of the best legitimate and legendary duck hunters in the United States. He was invited to hunt all over the country for ducks. In hunting clubs. He hunted with politicians, judges, sheriffs, you name it. And towards the end of his life, he became an undercover agent for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. His story is extremely unique. He passed on a lifelong knowledge of hunting and love for it, despite his disregard for any conservation efforts, but that was typical of the time. He passed it on for generations. He was hunting well into his 80s at the end of his life. The author, or the co-author, David Bach, even commented that they went on a duck hunt while he was gathering information to help him write this biography. And so that's one side to hunting. But it's kind of the darker side. Yeah, people have to survive. Typically, you don't see that a lot today in modern times, but that was ever more present during the market revolution, the switch over to industrialization, and the Great Depression, because the meat industry was so it was in its infant stages, and it wasn't very safe to eat till I think 1914, when FDR created the FDA. Second source I want to share with you guys is Texas Market Hunting: Stories of Waterfowl Game Laws and Outlaws. And this one focuses on the 1880s. A group of Texas huntsmen or market hunters, they became the meat basket, or the butchers for the entire country as they were expanding west. Most of the meat eaten along the Oregon Trail in the late 1880s, eaten in the Midwest, eaten on the plains, came from Texas. These group of people. All of the duck feathers or crane feathers you saw on people's clothes came from Texas. And at the peak, these Texans were killing 600 ducks a day in a 5-month shooting season. They were responsible at their height for shipping an estimated 60,000 ducks and geese out of Corpus Christi. Now, this is another extreme. Again, this is another example of people needing to survive. Again, this book, it chronicles the transformation from expatriation, essentially, to conservation. Texas, especially Corpus Christi, has some of the best late season duck hunting on the planet. And early game wardens and conservation experts persisted to get commercial waterfowl hunting banned. It was their goal. And again, that was another good reason why people had to hunt. This modern idea of what's the best way to put it? Of a vibrant community who gives and donates more towards conservation than any animal rights activist or PETA office did not manifest itself until the 1950s. The post-World War II era, when people had enough extra income to go to the supermarkets, to go get their meat from the corner butcher or whoever, that's when hunting really went back to its gentleman roots, its leisure roots. It went from subsistence more to hobby. And the final source I want to share with you guys discusses that, and it's called Hide, Horn, Fish, and Fowl: Texas Hunting and Fishing Lore. And this book, by Kenneth L. Untight, this asks the question at the very beginning: what would cause someone, and this is directed from the book, to withstand freezing temperatures in a cramped wooden box stand for hours on end, or stand in waist-high rushing waters, flicking a pole back and forth over and over, in many cases with nothing whatsoever to show for his efforts? On the surface, that's what it looks like a lot of us hunters do, is that we thrive off of failure. And we're almost masochists in that sense. But as I said in my little synopsis on the post, you could ask 100 hunters who will give you more than just surface answers why they hunt, and you'll more than likely get 100 different answers. Me personally, it's my therapy. I don't need to reel in a bass or bag a buck to feel accomplished. Just sitting out there, whether it's the most perfect spring day or the harshest of winter days, it's therapeutic. And all that failure is a form of adversity. And if you hunters are a different breed. I think as a whole we're more willing to fail, and take more risk in our personal lives than the average person. Iron sharpens iron. You always hear that, and hunts can be some of the most the sharpest iron out there, especially when it's -5 degrees out and it's spitting snow, and you're hoping that trophy buck walks on by and you can take some meat home for the freezer. But Untight alludes to the folklore, as I've been getting at for a while, that surrounds it all. That kind of kicked up with the rise of popular magazines in the 50s, like Field and Stream was around a lot longer, but Field and Stream, all of those popular publications that really got a reinvigorated in the 1950s. And like I said, people had a lot more time. I mean, road trips, vacations, 2 cars and a 3-bedroom house, that was, the ideal beaver cleaver type of house. So people had a lot of time to do things. But what it all boils down to is the reasons we hunt are many, and it's wrapped up in hundreds of years of history, for better or worse. And it's as much as part of our American identity as baseball and apple pie is, whether you agree with it or not. It's a large part of our collective American identity. There's not many countries on this planet where there's millions of acres of public land that every one of us own for the sole purpose of recreation, whether that's bird watching, hiking, taking your 4-wheeler or truck back there, or you're trying to get you that Rocky Mountain elk, that Roosevelt elk that you always dreamed of. That's really, really unique. In my line of work, outfitting and guiding and all that stuff, I've had the pleasure of talking to people from probably 30 or 40 different countries who pay thousands of dollars to come over here and take a trip and be part of it all. It's quite a unique experience that I encourage everybody to be a part of. It puts you in tune with nature. Planting a garden is even very similar to that. If you plant a garden, the reward you get, it's a risk, and the reward you get when you make your own salad or corn hash or salsa or chow chow, whatever it may be. That first harvest of those beans or lettuce, it's an incredible feeling. But sorry for rambling a little bit this week. I just wanted to get that out there. But you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and Merry Christmas. Have a good night.